fake. Worst fake I've ever seen.
I knew it was a hoax. There's nothing here.
Get out! Get out! You brought it! You led it here!
What is that?
Claire Holloway lived alone by choice. A quiet flat on the second floor of a crumbling Victorian house in South London suited her just fine. Peeling walls, uneven floors and all, it had a charm. And more importantly, it had solitude. She worked remotely as a freelance copy editor, cleaning up the grammar of people who were more confident than they were competent. Most days, her world existed between screens and silence. She liked it that way. Claire wasn't a recluse, just untethered. Since her mother died 2 winters ago, there had been no real anchor in her life, no obligation pulling her to anyone or anything. She filled the quiet with podcasts, books on urban legends, and a steady diet of digital oddities. Not to believe them, but to debunk them. She prided herself on spotting camera tricks, audio manipulations, lighting cheats. "Nothing haunts me," she used to joke. "I haunt the fakes." That night, a Friday in October, smelled like autumn and burnt toast. Rain freckled the window panes while Claire curled her feet beneath her on the sofa. A knock at the door broke the silence, sharp and cheerful. "It's open!" she called. In came Marcy, her oldest friend, wearing a puff jacket too big for her frame, and a grin that meant gossip. They hugged, exchanged the usual complaints about the weather, and soon sat sipping red wine over take-out containers. "So," Marcy began between bites, "have you seen the video?" Claire raised an eyebrow. "Which one?" "The shadowman thing. It's everywhere. Some guy caught it in a graveyard, like middle of nowhere. Belgrave or Belwick or some weird name. It's been all over Reddit and TikTok since yesterday." Claire smirked. "Let me guess. Shaky cam, creepy figure, distorted sound, and a warning in the comments not to watch after 3 a.m. "Shut up and watch it." Marcy pulled it up on her phone and turned it toward Claire. The video was barely a minute long. Poor resolution. The kind that made you question if it was recorded last week or in 1993. It opened with a man whispering into the camera, "This is Belgrave Cemetery. There's something wrong with this place." The camera tilted, revealing rusted gates, overgrown grass, crumbling headstones. Then it happened. For exactly 1 second, in the far left corner of the screen, stood a tall, black silhouette, motionless. The video cut to static. Claire snorted.
Huh? It's fake. Worst fake I've ever seen.
Marcy grinned. "Told ya." No depth to the figure. Lighting's wrong. And the blur around it's lazy. And that audio's been tampered with. Easy stuff. Hell, I could fake this on my laptop. Yeah, but the comment section's wild. People saying they've seen it. That it follows you after watching. Claire rolled her eyes. Urban legend clickbait. They always say that. Marcy shrugged. Still creeped me out. They moved on, laughing about exes, reminiscing about university days, and eventually saying their goodbyes at the door with a tight hug. The flat was quiet again. Claire brushed her teeth, set her alarm, and crawled under the covers, the distant hum of traffic a familiar lullaby Sleep came fast, but it didn't stay. At 3:03 a.m., her eyes opened. No sound had woken her, no dream, just something. A dull tug behind the eyes, a flicker of thought gnawing in the back of her mind. That video. She sat up, heart calm but curious. Reaching for her laptop, she flipped it open. Her screen flared to life, illuminating the shadows of the room. She searched Belgrave Shadowman. The video was easy to find. It was everywhere now. She clicked it. This time, she watched it more carefully. The shadow appeared again for exactly 1 second. Then she watched it again, and again, and again. By the 5th viewing, she wasn't mocking it. She was analysing it, slowing it, frame by frame. Her eyes narrowed. The figure was not just there. It was moving, ever so slightly, not stepping or walking, but pulling, drawing darkness from around the gravestones, from the overgrown hedges, from the space itself. Not light, but shadow was being absorbed. It was subtle, almost too subtle, but it was there. Claire adjusted the contrast, sharpened the frames, leaned in. What she thought was a flat graphic now had contours, density, and a flicker of impossible motion, like smoke drawn into a vacuum, like something hungry. Her heart began to thud softly. "Either this is the most brilliant fake I've ever seen," she whispered, voice barely audible in the dark. "Or..." She didn't finish the sentence, because in the reflection of her laptop screen, behind her, something moved. Claire barely remembered deciding to go. One moment, she was watching the video again, replaying that 1-second glimpse of the impossible. The next, she was booking a bed and breakfast in Belgrave, a speck of a town in the Midlands, barely clinging to the map. She told herself it was curiosity, that she needed a break, that this was just something to shake the dust off her routine, but in truth, the decision didn't feel like her own. It felt pulled from her, like the idea had always been there, waiting. The M1 was a slow-moving serpent of brake lights and agitated commuters. A 2.5-hour drive turned into 4 with stop-start traffic and a bleak grey sky threatening rain. Claire's car hummed steadily. She shouldn't have, but every so often she'd unlock her phone at red lights, tapping through to the video. Just for a second. Just to see. Her eyes would linger on the figure, the one everyone called the Shadowman. She had it paused at the moment it stood by the crumbled headstone, drawing in the darkness. It fascinated her. Not just the image, but the feeling. There was something inside it, or maybe something missing from it. It made her chest tighten and her hands clench the wheel. She arrived at Belgrave just after 4 p.m. The town was exactly what she expected. Small, outdated, and slightly hollow, like a place still waiting for the 1980s to end. The bed and breakfast sat at the edge of a field, once white-painted, now weathered to grey. A small hand-painted sign read, "Lavender View." The owner, a woman in her 60s, with a crooked smile and thick wool cardigan, gave Claire her key with a half-curious look. "Not many visitors this time of year," she said, "but you're welcome. You're in room 3, top of the stairs." "Thanks," Claire offered, checking in, then dropping her bags on the floral duvet of her room. The place smelled faintly of lavender, dust, and something old that had never fully aired out. She spent the next hour wandering the town, camera in hand. Belgrave had a single high street with a post office, a fish and chip shop, and a hardware store that looked like it hadn't changed hands in 40 years. The people were polite but distant, eyes lingering a second too long before returning to their routines. The cemetery wasn't far, just off a side road behind an abandoned chapel. She walked the perimeter first, then wandered inside. By daylight, it was disappointingly normal. Weathered gravestones leaned this way and that, weeds thick around the roots of old oaks. A few moss-covered angels stood with eroded faces and outstretched arms. She tried to line up the angle from the video near the far left edge. It was there, yes. The broken stone, the half-fallen iron fence. Nothing. No feeling, no presence, no dread. Just dead leaves and brittle silence. She sighed. What am I even doing here? Back at the B&B, she grabbed a sandwich from the mini-fridge downstairs and took it to her room. She barely ate half before collapsing fully dressed onto the bed, exhaustion seeping into her bones. The traffic, the search, the letdown of it all. It weighed her down like fog. Sleep took her instantly. She woke with a jolt. Her phone read 9:02 p.m. The window rattled faintly in the evening wind. Outside, Belgrave had sunk into the kind of rural darkness you don't get in cities. A full-bodied black, so thick it pressed against the glass. She sat up, rubbing her eyes. That's when she saw it. In the corner of her room, where the ceiling met the wall near the dresser, a shape loomed. She froze. A tall, motionless figure, darker than the shadows it stood in. She blinked. It didn't move. She sat straighter, staring. Nothing. The corner was empty, but her heart said otherwise. She felt it, that sensation of being watched, not by eyes but by presence, by intention, like something had waited for her to fall asleep, just so it could come closer. She stood, shivering. No more. She opened her bag, tossed in her camera, a flashlight, phone, power bank, zipped it shut and slung it over her shoulder. I'm ending this tonight, she muttered. Let's put this to bed. She opened the door to her room. The hallway was dim and quiet. She stepped out. The door swung shut behind her with a soft click, and the room fell still for a breath. Then, movement. From the corner where she had looked earlier, something stepped forward. It didn't emerge from shadow. It was shadow. A tall, formless figure with no eyes, no face, no sound, only visible because it was blacker than black, darker than night, a shape that drank the light around it. It had watched her sleep, and now it followed. Claire's hands trembled slightly as she tightened the strap on her camera. She tried to ignore it, told herself it was just the cold. But that wasn't true. She hadn't felt this way in years, not since the night of her mother's passing, when the world had felt hollow, wrong, as if some unseen truth had crept too close to the veil. She had become calloused, hardened by years of disappointment, detachment, and the modern cynicism of always seeing the trick behind the magic. But tonight was different. The cemetery gates were locked, the old iron arch sealed with a heavy rusted chain. She stood outside for a moment, staring through the bars. The trees beyond were still, the grass silver with dew. A voice inside her said, "Turn back." But another voice, deeper, older, whispered, "Go on." She climbed the low wall to the side, boots slipping on damp stone, and dropped silently into the soft, spongy soil below. Her flashlight flickered once before catching, casting long, twitching shadows across the crooked graves. She walked slowly. Every noise was louder than it should have been. The crunch of her boots, the whisper of the wind, the distant creak of tree limbs overhead. She found the spot, the exact place from the video. She could trace it now by memory. The cracked stone, the broken fence, the leaning willow. She lifted her camera, powered it on, and began recording. A full sweep. 360 degrees. Slow, deliberate. Nothing. She paced. Checked playback. Nothing. She sat on a moss-covered bench near the willow, the camera balanced on her knee. She watched, waited. The minutes stretched. Her breath fogged in the air. Her heart began to slow, retreating into the rhythm of disappointment. "This is stupid," she whispered. "I knew it."
I knew it was a hoax. There's nothing here.
She stood, brushing dew from her coat, and turned to leave. But she wasn't alone. From the shadows, it watched. There was no breath, no sound, no heartbeat, only awareness. It had no name, no need for one. It was not born, and it could not die. It had lived in the corners of sight, fed on forgotten glances, grown in the soil of belief. When no one believed, it slept. But now someone had come. Someone watched it back. It moved like fog across stone unseen, yet always near, always just out of view. It clung to the underside of the gravestones, melted into tree bark, crept beneath the folds of the earth. Every time Claire lifted the camera, it drifted, one step beyond the lens, but it never left. Not once. From its perspective, the world was a negative image, where light was the absence and shadow was presence. Claire glowed to it. She was brilliant, not with light, but with focus, obsession, curiosity. Most turned away after watching the video, but not her. She watched it again and again. She listened. She heard the whisper in the static. She fed it. That intrigued the watcher. It could unmake her in a moment. One flicker, one breath, and she would vanish, fall into herself like a star collapsing. But instead, it lingered. Not because it cared, but because she cared. And that made her interesting. Claire stood in the dark. She no longer felt watched. She felt seen. Her skin crawled, her neck stiffened. The trees whispered things that had no language. Her own shadow stretched wrong, angling toward the figure she could not see. She turned, camera raised. "Show yourself," she said quietly. Nothing, only silence. But from a twisted branch above her, the shadow leaned closer. Claire packed her bag in silence. She folded her clothes with slow, deliberate care, as if by doing so she could press the uncertainty out of her body, compress it into something neat and finished. She hadn't slept well, but that wasn't new. No footage, she murmured to herself. No shadow, no presence, just weird feelings and me overthinking, hoping. She zipped the bag closed, took one last look around the little B&B room with its frilly curtains and fake roses, and muttered, "Thanks for nothing." The drive home was grey. The clouds hung low and heavy, and the M1 was its usual mess of red taillights and impatient horns. Claire barely noticed. Her mind wasn't on the road. It wasn't even on the night before. It was on the question she'd asked herself the moment she'd climbed back over the cemetery wall. What was I expecting? She parked outside her flat. The streets hummed with life. Dogs barking, buses groaning, someone shouting into a phone across the road. Claire unlocked her door, stepped inside, and closed it behind her. Silence fell, the ordinary kind. She made tea, sat in her chair, stared at the blank TV. Her world had resumed, flat, dull, predictable, the way it had always been. She pulled her laptop over, opened it. The video was still in her history. She hesitated, then shook her head and opened her browser settings. Her cursor hovered over clear cache. "I don't want this coming up again," she muttered. "Don't want to look like a lunatic." Just before she clicked, a comment caught her eye. It had been posted only an hour ago. "I found him. Guy who took the video. Tower block. Still alive. Barely." Claire's fingers twitched. She copied the address, mapped it. 52 minutes away. She stood, walked to the door, then froze, her hand on the knob. "What are you doing, Claire?" she whispered. "It's all nonsense. There is no beyond, no darkness, no watcher, no meaning. Just this." She looked back at her apartment. The same walls, the same silence, the same slow decay of days. She said softly, "I wanted there to be something more. Just something. Something that would pull her out of this life. This dull repetition, this modern noise that passed for living. She didn't believe in gods or ghosts, but she believed in something deeper than data. And for a moment, in the cemetery, she had felt something. A presence, a watching, a truth that wasn't comfortable, but was undeniably real. She grabbed her keys. Screw it! The door slammed behind her, but the flat wasn't empty. From the darkest corner, where no light reached even in daytime, something moved. It stepped forward, darker than shadow, a silhouette that seemed to absorb the room itself. It moved without noise, touched her bed, her teacup, her chair. It breathed in her scent. It was not confined to places. It followed obsession, and Claire had fed it well. The tower block in Acton was exactly what she expected. Grey, buzzing with the hum of dying fluorescence, stairwells stained with time, voices leaking through walls. She found the door, flat 17, and knocked hard. A beat of silence, then a voice, low, hoarse, almost pleading. "Who is it?" "Claire," she said. "I just want to talk." A pause. Then the voice again, sharper now. "No, just go away. Leave me alone. I told you all to stop. I'm tired of you people coming round here." Claire leaned close to the door. "I can make it stop," she said softly. "Just tell me the truth. Tell me how you faked the video. That's all I want. I'll tell everyone. You'll never hear from anyone again." Another long pause, then, slowly, the lock clicked. The door opened a crack. A pale, shaking eye peered through. Then it opened. The flat smelled of sweat, metal, and old fear. The windows were sealed, edges taped shut, with layers of foil and cardboard. The only light came from UV lamps placed in every corner, casting a sickly, purplish glow over the room. It looked like a forensic crime scene, filtered through madness. The man who had filmed the video was maybe in his mid-30s, but he looked 50. His face was drawn, lips cracked, eyes bloodshot and twitching. "Yes," he said, voice brittle. "Tell them it's fake. Tell them I faked it. That's all it is, a joke. Just get them to stop." "How did you fake it?" Claire asked. He didn't answer. "I mean, the pull-in shadows, the frame distortion. Did you use filters, overlays? Just help me understand." He looked at her, lips twitching, then said flatly, "I just did. Put that in your blog or whatever. Just say it's fake." "You don't sound sure." "I am." "You're lying." "I said I faked it," he snapped. He began pacing. His skin glistened with sweat, even in the cold. Then something in him changed. His posture snapped upright. He pointed at her with a trembling hand. You brought it here. Claire blinked. What? You led it here. His voice rose, manic. You've been to Belgrave. I can see it on you. You felt it. It knows. It follows belief. It followed you. It used you. It wants me now. What are you talking about? You don't understand. You brought it right to me. You've killed me. He lunged at the door, flung it open. Get out. Claire stumbled backward into the hallway. Get out, he screamed again, slamming the door with a force that rattled the frame.
Get out! Get out! You brought it! You led it here!
Inside she heard movement, furniture being dragged, glass breaking, frantic mumbling. Claire stood motionless, her breath fogging in the stale corridor air. Then she turned, walked the long concrete balcony, row after row of doors, empty silence. But at the far end, a figure stood, tall, still, darker than the air itself. The lights above it flickered, and then it was gone. As Claire descended the cracked concrete stairwell of the tower block, her phone buzzed. Marcy, let's get drunk. She stared at the message for a moment, thumb hovering. Then she smiled. The bar was warm and too loud, just the way people liked it when they were trying to forget. Music pulsed like a heartbeat through cheap speakers, and the lights stuttered in reds and blues, washing faces in false emotions. Claire had always hated bars like this, and yet she laughed, she drank, she danced, because that's what everyone else was doing, because it was easier than trying to explain, because pretending was simpler than admitting she'd been followed out of the dark. Marcy spun beside her, glass in hand, yelling over the music. See? You just needed to let go for once. Claire nodded, laughing too loud. She let the drink burn down her throat. Another. But she was lying. She wasn't dancing. She was drowning. She didn't want the drink. She didn't want the noise. She wanted the silence, the truth behind the veil, the thing she almost saw when her life was quiet enough to listen. But instead, she wore the mask again, the smile. How many of us pretend to be what we think is acceptable, and how long until we forget what we really are underneath? Claire had spent years playing the role, normal, functioning, unfazed, but she wasn't. Not really. She never was. As the lights flickered overhead, she stopped. She froze mid-step. Across the room, in the corner where the light didn't quite reach, something moved. It didn't move like a person. It absorbed movement, drank motion into itself, tall, still, featureless. It wasn't just dark. It was darker than the dark, a negative space cut into the world. Claire stepped off the dance floor, eyes locked, walking slowly toward the shadow. She felt like she was falling, not forward, but inward. Claire. Marcy grabbed her arm. Claire snapped her gaze away. Did you see that? Marcy blinked. See what? Claire looked back. Nothing. Just a wall stained with sweat and flashing light. Marcy squinted at her. Looks like you've had one too many. Come on, let's call it. It's late. Claire nodded, but her smile didn't reach her eyes. The taxi ride was silent. Marcy got out first, leaving with a wave and a yawn. Claire stared out the window. Empty streets, passing buildings, and there, by a lamppost, the figure, not moving, not waving, just watching. Then, gone. A blink. Had she imagined it? The taxi dropped her at her flat. She climbed the steps slowly, the hallway echoing with the soft drag of her boots. Back inside, she dropped her coat, sat down at her desk and flipped open the laptop. Reflexively, she opened Reddit. Her heart slowed as she read the headline. Break-in. Belgrave video source found dead in flat. Suspected suicide. The room felt suddenly colder. She stared. Her hands trembled. Did I? She whispered. Had she led something there? Had she fed it? Was it her fault? She closed the lid. The screen went black, but not entirely. In the reflection, behind her, a figure. Blacker than the screen, blacker than the shadows. She spun in her chair. Nothing. Her breath caught in her throat. What are you? She shouted into the empty air. A muffled bang on the wall. A neighbour's voice. Keep it down in there. She looked back at the black screen, then whispered, not to herself, but to the thing behind the veil. You must be real, she said. I saw you. You followed me. You touched my life. You touched him. The silence grew thick, heavy. Then she said, quieter still, I've been lying to myself. She stood, walked to the mirror, stared at her own reflection. I wear their face, say their words, laugh their laughs. I pretend to be who I think I should be, not who I am. I've lived a life of pretending, smiling at the noise, nodding at the small talk. And the truth is, I'm hollow. She turned to the darkest corner of the room. I've been waiting for you, hoping you were real, that something would come, something final, something true. She stepped closer to the shadow. Voice shaking, she whispered, Come take me, release me, set me free. And the room held its breath. In the darkness, it listened. I wanted to be someone. Her voice cracked as she sat on the cold wooden floor, knees hugged to her chest, her eyes fixed on the empty shadows that coiled around the corners of the room. I was scared. I wanted to try. I gave in. I wanted to be me, really truly me, and I failed. The room was still. The silence was not empty. It listened. I thought maybe if I played along, if I told everything I loved, if I lowered my voice and bit my tongue and smiled when I wanted to scream, maybe I'd belong somewhere, anywhere. She exhaled, trembling. I gave up trying to shine, because shining makes people look. And when people look, they judge, they reject, they fear. So I became nothing. Her voice grew steady, almost calm. They say man is a noble thing, that we are capable of greatness, of invention, of soul, but we trade it all away, bit by bit, for acceptance. We lie to ourselves every day. We stop asking, what do I want to be? And start asking, who do they want me to be? Her hands gripped her knees tighter. I had something once. I was something, but I cut it out of myself. I smothered it so I could fit into the blandness. I wore the mask. I became the echo of their comfort. She closed her eyes. I betrayed myself. The shadows began to stir, not as movement, as intent. They pulled in, condensed, as if the room were exhaling all light. The darkness didn't gather, it withdrew, revealing something at its core. It wasn't smoke, it wasn't mist, it was conscious shadow, and it was taking form. Long limbs, a tall silhouette, darkness folding into itself to create density, weight, shape, and then a man, old, older than the memory of time, skin like weathered parchment, stretched too thin over bone, sunken eyes in deep sockets, almost lost in pools of black. A few grey strands clung to his scalp. His robe shimmered with fold of living darkness. He stepped forward without sound and sat on the chair across from her. One skeletal hand rested on the armrest. Claire saw the hand, skin translucent, veins like thin rivers of ink, fingers like twisted branches. The sight of him was sickening, not grotesque, but wrong, the kind of wrong that drains something from you. She felt it in her bones. A sickness that wasn't illness, but truth. He said nothing. He just stared. Claire looked up, breathing shallow. "You," she whispered. "You killed that man." The creature tilted its head slightly, as if humouring her. "Yes, my dear. And I'm going to kill you." Her body flinched, her chest locked. "But," he continued with a faint smile that cracked his skin, "isn't that what you wanted?" I don't want to die," she managed. The creature's tone grew sharper, colder. "No, you are afraid of dying, but you do not want to live." The silence that followed was not absence, it was presence. Then he spoke, not with a voice, but with depth, as if truth itself was borrowing a throat. "You speak of truth, of discovery, of being something real. Do you think this comes without cost? The sin is not in failing. The sin is in denying the part of yourself that reaches upward, that dares. Mankind, so noble, so brilliant, and yet they clip their own wings to avoid standing too far above their peers. They fear becoming what they were meant to be, because it might make others uncomfortable. So they shrink, they dim, they rot, and when they die, they are mourned not for who they were, but for who they never had the courage to become." He leaned forward slightly. "You, Claire, are a flame buried in cold ash. You asked for meaning. You invited me. Now meaning has arrived." Claire sat frozen. "Who are you?" The creature leaned back, hands resting gently on the chair like a king upon a throne. "Oh, my name would mean nothing to you," he said softly. She swallowed. "Are you the shadowman?" He chuckled, a sound that cracked something old in the air. "Shadowman? Perhaps. But that's a child's name for something they fear, but don't understand. I am an elder." He smiled, and skin cracked from the effort. "You might know us as vampires." She blinked. He raised a finger, though I detest the word. It is, how shall I put it, limiting. You see, humans write their little stories, and in doing so, reduce us to myths and monsters. They imagine us as beasts who drink blood, sleep in coffins, and turn to bats. He scoffed, as if hunger were our only gift. His gaze sharpened. "They forget the mind, the centuries, the clarity. Do you think, in all those years we learned nothing, that we would be unchanged by time? I have outlived kings and gods. I've walked beside men who now live only in legend, and they were infants compared to what I know. Every man I've ever met thought himself wise until he stood before me, and then they wept." He paused, then gave her the smallest nod. "Ah, excuse me. I seem to be drifting. Where were we?" Claire's voice cracked. "Are you really going to kill me? Drink my blood?" "Of course," he replied gently. "You must feed me. You invited me. You called me. You came to me. You begged me to follow. He spread his hand slightly. Now I am here. I would hate to disappoint. Claire could not move. The elder leaned back slightly, as though granting her a final mercy. But before it ends, he said, I will give you something rare. He smiled again, indulgent, almost paternal. You may ask me anything. She stared. Anything? She whispered. Anything. I have lived for hundreds of years. I have walked through truths that would destroy minds. Men live but a flicker of time, yet even in that flicker, they create wonders. Now imagine what I have seen, what I understand. He leaned closer, and the shadows bent inward around him. Ask me, Claire Holloway. Ask me what they never dared to know. The room held its breath. Claire sat across from him, this ancient thing, her body trembling with cold and fear, her spirit hollowed by something far deeper than the threat of death. He waited, eyes sunken, face unmoving, shadows folded into themselves at his feet, whispering as if they could feel the weight of the moment. Claire breathed in, out. Then she looked him in the eyes, those wells of centuries, of endings, and said the words, I have nothing left to lose, so I'll ask. Her voice broke, then steadied. Who am I? What was my purpose here? Because I see nothing, no meaning, just dust and noise and failure. The elder did not blink. He nodded. Slowly, almost reverently, then he stood. The room darkened further, not from shadow, but from something like gravity, the weight of truth. He spoke. That, Claire Holloway, is the only question worth asking. He took a step closer, and the air turned cold, not like winter, but like the breath of something that lived in the void between stars. You are not your job, not your bank account, not the faces you wear for others. You are your choices, your convictions. You are the flame or the ash, and for too long you have chosen to dim yourself. He circled her slowly, like a wolf pacing firelight. You asked for purpose, but purpose is not given. It is forged. It is the act of taking what you are and using it to shape the world. You were born with the one spark that defines your kind, the spark of will. But instead of kindling it into something bright, something rare, you buried it. You sacrificed it on the altar of approval. Claire trembled. He stopped behind her, voice like old thunder. The world teaches people to hide, to be soft, to be small, to trade greatness for peace, truth for comfort. They are taught that being liked is more important than being honest, that wanting more, being more, is arrogant, that striving is shameful, and so they starve in silence while smiling at dinner tables, starve in crowded rooms, pretending to belong, starve until their souls rot inside the shell that they've painted with smiles and apologies. Claire closed her eyes. She saw herself, waving at colleagues, nodding to men who spoke over her, laughing politely at jokes she hated, pretending to be normal. Swallowing herself piece by piece, the elder continued, You want to know why you see no meaning? Because you looked outward. You searched for signs, symbols, divine whispers. But the meaning was never outside of you. It was never hiding in the stars or some holy plan. Meaning is the act of creation. The moment you take your mind, your soul, and say, This is what I will build of myself. That is your purpose, to become what only you could become, and you abandoned it. Claire opened her eyes, Her voice was small, broken. "I didn't know how." The elder leaned down until his withered face was inches from hers. His breath smelled of dust, of grave soil, of burned pages. "You didn't fail because you were weak. You failed because you chose the lie. You chose to be nothing, to be palatable. You betrayed the only thing that was ever yours, yourself." He stood. "And now you ask me for mercy?" "No, I am not mercy. I am consequence." Claire collapsed to the floor, arms wrapped around herself. Tears streamed down her cheeks, not from fear, but from the shame of recognition. He returned to the chair, the shadows curling at his feet. "You are not alone, Claire," he said. "They all do it. Almost all. They live lies and call it kindness. They shatter their brilliance into a million tolerable pieces. They die forgotten, and the world remains safe." He tilted his head. "But not you. You saw the shadow. You came to it. You begged it to come." Claire looked up, her voice a whisper. "Are you really going to kill me?" The elder smiled again, and it was a horrible thing. "You already killed yourself." Then softer. "But I will finish the work." Marcy cried when she got the news. Claire was gone. They found her in her flat 2 days later, after she missed 2 meetings and never answered her phone. The door had been locked from the inside. No signs of struggle, no forced entry, just silence. The official report was vague. Strange illness, sudden collapse, extreme blood loss, unexplained cause. The coroner said she was pale, cold, and unnaturally still, but it was her face that stayed with them. There was no pain, no fear, only a look of calm. Eyes closed, lips parted ever so slightly, as though, in her final breath, she had finally found what she'd always been searching for. Some swore they saw her smile, not a smile of madness or surrender, but the smile of a woman who had stood at the edge of the void, gazed into it, and understood. She looked like someone who had made peace. One officer said quietly, "Like she'd finally discovered that which men spend an eternity to discover." They buried her on a quiet day. Simple service, small turnout. Marcy left a rose on the casket and whispered, "I hope you found what you were looking for, Claire." In a forgotten corner of Belgrave Cemetery, where the trees grow twisted and the light never quite reaches the earth, a figure stood beneath a crumbling angel statue. Tall, still, darker than the night itself. It watched the wind move the leaves. Then slowly, it vanished. Not into the shadows, but into the world.